We're going to be running an SQL injection attack, and it's going to be one where the database is not automatically giving us some sort of Boolean-based response. And in order to get true or false responses from the database, we have to force errors based on certain conditions. Now, we're going to be assuming that you already know the basics of blind SQL injection. If not, start with the video, what is blind SQL injection? We're going to be making use of this lab. It's entitled Blind SQL Injection with Conditional Errors. The objective is to extract the administrator password, and we're given some information about the database. It has a table called users, and there are columns called username and password, and we need to figure out the administrator password and solve the lab by logging in as the administrator. We also get a hint, which we will check out for the purposes of this lab. It says this lab uses an Oracle database. So this is relevant because the syntax we need to use for the SQL injection attack is going to change slightly depending on which exact database is running on the back end. So we're given a clue here. It's the Oracle database. If we didn't know this information, we'd have to start our attack by figuring out which database is running. So without further ado, let's access the lab. So we have our traffic proxying through burp. Let's head to the My Account section where we get greeted with a login box. Let's check out the request that's being submitted to the backend. And the key idea here is that we have a cookie with a name of tracking ID along with its value. Now, in a previous lab, the web page was leaking information regarding whether our specific injected SQL query was returning any rows. So as a simple example, if we send this to the burp repeater, let's copy the value of our tracking ID. And let's change the value to ABC. So what will occur here is we get a valid SQL query being run on the back end. It's looking for the user where the tracking ID equals ABC. So the query itself is valid, but it's not going to return any rows because presumably no user has the tracking ID ABC. So if we send that, and let's check out the render tab, what we'll see is there's no discernible difference in the response given to us by the server. So previously we were actually getting a welcome back message if the SQL query returned rows, whereas if it didn't return any rows, we weren't getting that welcome back message. So the page was leaking information regarding whether our queries were matching results or not. And we were able to use that in order to extract the administrator password from the database. But now we have a bit of a problem. This is SQL injectable, but we're not getting a change in the response from the server regarding whether our input is actually returning any rows. So we don't have that true or false response from the server. However, if we were to inject a single quote, we do get some information from the server. Let's send this to the backend. And you can see we actually get an internal server error. Now that's all we're going to get in this case. We're not going to get any specific error message because this is going to be a blind SQL injection attack. So this is the only piece of information we're going to get. But you see, the thing is, we're not really that interested in whether the server is returning an error or not. We're interested in, for a valid SQL query, whether the server or the SQL query is actually returning any rows. So is there any way that we can manipulate this error response to extract information from the database regarding whether certain injected SQL queries are returning any rows or whether they're not returning any rows? And the answer is yes. This is what this lab is based on: conditional errors. We can piggyback off this error message to ask the database true or false questions, and this will allow us to extract any piece of data from the database, including the administrator password, which is the objective here. Now, before we do this, let's see if we can demonstrate the concept, because the objective here is to understand how this works. So let's pretend we are injecting into this, and let's start off with a basic condition. Let's just say and1 equals 1, and now let's comment out the rest of the SQL query. Okay, let's submit that. Great, we don't get any kind of error. And if we say and1 equals 0, we still don't get any error because this is a valid SQL query. So this really demonstrates the problem. We can't ask the database whether 1 equals 1 or 1 equals 0. Of course, we know the answer in this case, But really, we can only validate whether the query is valid. We can't actually ask these types of true or false questions. So how can we rewrite this injected query so that we can, as a test, see if we can ask the SQL database whether 1 equals 1 or 1 equals 0? And we have to make use of the case function. Let's take a quick look at how this works. So instead of and 1 equals 1, let's have a subquery. We'll choose select case. Now, case is very similar to an if-then type statement in general programming logic. So we say select case when. So this is if this first query is true. So let's say if 1 equals 2, and we know that that's going to be false, we can say then, and this is partly where the Oracle syntax comes in, because this statement's going to be very specific to an Oracle database. So if 1 equals 2, which it doesn't, then we're going to convert a certain data type to a format, varchar format, in fact. So 2 underscore char, and the expression that we want to convert. Now, we're going to deliberately include an impossible expression that's going to result in an error. So we're going to say then 2 char 1 divided by 0, the value of which is impossible to calculate because it's infinite. But if 1 doesn't equal 2, so this is where the else part comes in. This is why it's referred to as conditional error, because we're only going to provoke an error if 1 equals 2, which it doesn't. So with this statement, we're not going to provoke an error. Otherwise, select A. So we're saying if 1 equals 2, then select the value of 2 char 1 divided by 0. Otherwise, select A. And we have to use end to indicate that it's the end of that case syntax. And one of the things we need to know about Oracle databases as well is we have to specify a table we're going to extract from. Otherwise, we're going to get an error. So we need to say from, and again, this is where database specific knowledge comes in. So Oracle is going to have a table called dual. We can end that subquery, and then we can choose equals A, and then we're going to comment out the rest of the SQL query. So before we run that, let's think about what this query is actually going to be doing. So let's start off with the invisible part of the query that's on the back end. It's going to be something like select username from users where tracking ID equals, and obviously we can't have ABC. So let's just put in the full tracking ID. So where tracking ID equals the tracking ID string and the results of the subquery equals A. And the evaluation of the subquery is going to first check whether 1 equals 2. And if it doesn't, then it's going to return A. Whereas if 1 does equal 2, then it's going to error out because it's impossible to divide 1 by 0. Okay, so let's submit that to the back end. And we don't get an error. And the reason why we don't get an error is because that 1 divided by 0 is never touched. So the Oracle database starts by evaluating the truthiness of 1 equals 2. It realizes that that's false, so it then skips to the else part of that case syntax, and it then selects A from the dual table. So therefore that subquery matches with A. The error is never provoked. So we've now inferred the truthiness of this statement inside the bracket. And just as proof of concept, let's input a statement that we know to be true. Let's say 1 equals 1. Let's now submit that to the back end. Let's have a look at the response. Internal server error. So what we're doing right now is we are piggybacking on the fact that that error is reported to be able to ask the SQL server true and false questions. Of course, we already know that 1 equals 1 and that it doesn't equal 2. We can actually start making use of subqueries inside this bracket. In fact, we don't even need the bracket for this. What we're going to do is we're going to start by analyzing the length of the password. So I'll put length password, and obviously we're not going to find that in the dual table. So we also need to change the table that we're targeting. So we're going to be looking in the users table where username equals administrator. So we can see that that password in brackets refers specifically to one of the columns returned as part of that row that's returned. So we have this single row from the database. It's a user that has the username administrator. And of course, as part of that row, we have a password column. And we're having a look at the length of that password column. Now, length password, let's say, is it larger than 1? And what's going to happen here, if it's larger than 1 and it's true, we're going to receive an error. Now, you can configure this differently so that we see an error if it's false, if that works better in your brain. But the way it's set up right now is that if we see the error, it means that our query is true. So is the length of the password larger than 1? Let's submit that. And we get an error, which means it's true. It's larger than 1. Again, just as proof of concept, if we specify larger than 100, and spoiler alert, the password is smaller than 100 characters in length, and we submit that, we no longer get an error. So you can see we're successfully asking true or false questions to the SQL server. So what we can do now is we can right-click on this request and we can send it to intruder. Let's head to the intruder tab. We're going to clear any payloads on this HTTP request, and we're then going to set payload markers around this integer. So let's add a marker here. We'll then head to the payloads tab, and we're going to look for payload type numbers. And we're going to specify from 1 to 30. We might do 1 to 100, but I already know that it's less than 30. So I'm going to just use numbers that make sense, given that I already know the answer to the password. Step is going to be 1. So this is going to brute force all the numbers from 1 to 30, one at a time, and it's going to input them into that length of password is larger than section of the SQL query. So let's choose start attack. So when I'm doing this, I like to focus on the length of the response from the server. You can see that in general, the response from the server is 2454 in length until we reach 20, where it becomes 3196. So if we look at request number 19, here we are actually asking the server, is the password length larger than 19? And you can see we get an error. So it's saying true, it is larger than 19. Then we ask the server, is the password length larger than 20 characters? We don't get an error. Now we can kind of infer that from the length of the response. We don't need to crawl each of these responses for the error because we can see very clearly every request 19 and larger and lower is 2454, 20 and larger and higher is 3196. So we can deduce that the password has exactly 20 characters. So now let's think about enumerating the letters of the password itself. So we're going to make use of a different condition so we can get rid of our length password is larger than. And we're going to say when substring of password column at character 1 character equals A. So if the first letter of the password is A, we're going to get an error. If not, it's going to evaluate the second part of that case statement and it's just going to return A. So we've submitted that, we don't get an error. So it basically means the first letter of the password is not A. So once again, if we right click that, we can send it to the intruder. We're going to clear our payload markers again. We're now interested in brute forcing the value of the letter. And I think one of the hints we're given is that this is either A to Z or 0 to 9. So it's an alphanumeric character, it's no signs or anything like that. And I think all of the letters are lowercase. So that does reduce the size of the problem somewhat. So we're going to add payload markers around the A, then go to define our payloads. We're going to choose payload type brute forcer for this. And you can see automatically provided by burp, we have A to Z 0 to 9. We're going to set min length and max length to 1. And we're going to start the brute force attack. Once again, as we do this, we'll pay attention to the length of the response. We're basically looking for the one response that has a different length to all of the others. That's going to be the error. It's going to be the one that tells us which is the first character of the password. Okay, great. We can see request 23, where we submitted a W, returns an error. So it means the first character of the password is W. So at this point, we might fire up a Notepad document and we could actually iterate through all of the 20 characters in the password one by one. That's obviously going to take quite an amount of time though. It's more work than we'd ideally like to do. So let's see if we can come up with a slightly more elegant solution where we can brute force the whole thing with one intruder attack. So we're here with our vulnerable SQL injection attack. We're actually interested in iterating over two values. So the position in the password string, we'll add a payload marker. And then for each position in the password string, we want to iterate over all of the alphanumeric values. So we'll also add that second payload marker where the alphanumeric values are injected. Let's head to payloads, and we now have two payload sets. So payload set number 1, this is where we're going to have numbers between 0 and 20 for the 20 characters in the password. Step by 1 interval each time. So that's payload set 1 defined. Let's have a look at payload set 2. Here we're going to head to the brute forcer, and we're going to use the A to Z 0 to 9. We're going to set min length and max length to 1. So you can see it tells us how many requests, 756 requests here. It could take a while. Just a side note here, this is the community edition of Burp. What that means is that these large intruder attacks are throttled. I'm going to expect this to take a few hours. It probably would have been fast to manually enumerate every single character one at a time if we're using the community edition. But the advantage of this method is we can start the attack, we can come back in a few hours, and then we can simply complete the lab at that point. So everything's in place, we're going to start the attack. We'll watch the first few requests filter in to make sure everything looks okay. And at this point, we are just going to leave Burp running for a few hours. We'll be back shortly to solve the lab. Okay, so here are the results. We're interested in all the responses with 2454, since those are the queries that are essentially true. And we have the information sorted by payload 1, otherwise known as the position in the password string. So it's really just a case of copying down these values all of the way from position 1 in the password. So we have W6NY, 9GN, double M1U5, double LQK, OIBT. And that is our 20 character password string. So let's see if we can log into the lab. You can see the lab's no longer active, so we're just going to reconnect to that. So we'll copy the password string, username administrator, let's paste in that password. And unfortunately, that's not going to connect. And eventually it'll tell us that the password is incorrect. You'll just have to take my word that this is the solution. And this was previously the administrator password for the lab that's just timed out. So keep in mind, just because an application is not displaying the results of the query or indicating whether the query has any matches, if we're able to see a visual confirmation that an error is happening, then it may be possible to make use of these conditional errors for a successful blind SQL injection attack. All right, hope you found it interesting. Thanks very much for watching, guys.